Greetings, family. Welcome to Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. This week, I want to address some issues that I keep coming across on a constant, regular basis. Going through TikTok, going through social media, looking at, the kind of discourse, the kind of discussion we're having. And recently, I was listening to Bakanga, very sharp, very, challenging type of discussion he will have about our concept of the world, our idea about the world, our idea about God, and and so forth. And what got my attention was the kind of guests that he had on his program. They were constantly bringing up these alternative history of our people. Now, there was a young lady came on, and I noticed that she came on, oh, I'm not black. That was one of her arguments. And I'm not African. That was another one of her argument. And it was like you can detect it. But Bakanga was very smart enough to detect these pretendians who are coming amongst our people and pushing this false narrative. And it's very disconcerting to hear people are pushing this kind of false narrative on themselves. It's a self-delusion to try to claim that, you're obviously an African. You can see all the phenotypes. You can see that these individuals are African. They are black people, and they're denying who they are. And it's very, very sad to see these things happening. And then there's this one brother came on there, man, and it was a shame to see that this brother would come and making up all type of concepts and ideas about history and who did what first, and he pretty much claimed that everything started in America. All the food production. He went as far as saying that oxygen started in America, that the trees started in America, and life and animals and food started in America and spread around the world. And he claimed he can read ancient texts, and he's the only one on the planet that can read ancient texts. This is the kind of arrogancy that is coming from these people, the kind of delusional thinking that is coming out of these people. And they push all these falsehood. And one thing I noticed, there is nothing to back them up in science. There's no peer review. No one can check these information. It's just they feeling, but at the deep core of it is an anti-African expression. There's a self-hatred of the African heritage. They resent being called African. They resent being associated with African. And it's just sad because it is glorious to be an African. It is wonderful to be who you are. You know what I mean? Look at me. I was born in Jamaica. Proud to be a Jamaican. Proud of my African heritage. And I know that there are European enslavers in my ancestry as well. Those who enslaved our people, they raped our ancestors. They took advantage of our ancestors. And as a result, they was able to intermingle in their blood and their DNA into our African generation. So, I've been a victim of that, as you can see from my complexion. But I'm African to the bone, through and through. My ideology, my worldview, it's all Pan-African. I embrace my ancestry. I embrace my African ancestors, the honorable African ancestors, those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our existence today. I honor that journey and I respect them. And I don't understand why there's some amongst us that have difficulty with accepting who they are. And they don't want to take a DNA test. They don't want to take a blood test because the DNA test is going to reveal to them the truth. And they would do anything to run away from the truth. The DNA test is their kryptonite. That's their kryptonite. They would talk about anything else except that DNA test to determine, let's see what's in your blood. Let's see if our blood can give us an indication. Even if it don't give us the complete picture, if it give us some ideas of what you're made up of. Get some percentage here and there to see your journey. And the reality is that African part of the journey will show up. 70, 80, maybe 90% of who they are African, and they're willing to turn their back on it. Now, some of the other thing that they come up with, it's so outrageous. Some of the claims that they make in their, and it was insulting. The arrogancy of it was, some of it was insulting. Sisters start saying, oh, that's why you want to be like us. You know, we did, like this I'm trying to say, we did all these inventions. We created all these things. I understand why you African want to claim us and want to be like us. I mean, it was an insidious psychology. Odious psychology. To try to think, you separate yourself from Africa, and then you look at your African brothers and look down as if they're trying to claim to associate with you because of what? Because you're something else other than African? The only reason why Africans want to associate with Africans in the diaspora is because we're brothers and sisters from the same ancestry. That is the reason why we're trying to reconnect and trying to reach out to each other across the globe. Not because you are some different species or some different race. And race is a social construct. There is no such thing as different races. But the reality is that they are willing to claim that they are not who they actually are. And that is sad. It's a sad psychology. And the fact that they would try to construct these false type of psychology, you know, oh, you trying to come over here to be like us, look at our culture. And what they're doing, you know, they're claiming the African American culture and claim that they're not African American. So every invention that the African Americans have created, that African genius in them, they reject the African idea, but they claim what they have achieved and trying to claim that. And then everything that the native so-called Americans, the indigenous people done, they're claiming that, oh, we have hundreds of pyramids and mounts and we did this and we did that. All from what those indigenous people have done. They're claiming it. And they have very little connection to those people. A very small amount of our people have actually intermingled with the natives of the Americas. I think it's less than 3% of our people. The vast bulk of our people have no interaction with these people. But that's what they want to claim because they're running away from Africa. That self-hate is so deep. That's rooted in our enslavement. And it is sad. It is sad. And I know I keep returning to this subject, but what I realize is that every time I look across the spectrum, it resurfacing itself. It's resurfacing itself. And I think we need to really combat these false ideas, these false identities, these pretending identities. People are pretending to be people that they're not. And they know within their heart and soul that they're not these people because they don't want to take a DNA test. They don't want to verify what's in their blood. Their blood will not lie to them. And they don't want to use science. They would use argument. Oh, my grandmother told me I'm an Indian. My grandmother said I was a part of the Choctaw and the Blackfoot. And my grandmother said this and grandmother said that. And then, you got 4 grandparents. And then you got 8 great-grandparents and 16, and you go back and back, you got all these grandparents. If one of the grandparents happened to be linked, a part of that 2% that have link intermarried, interbreeding between one of the native people, then it is a problem, But it is something that we have to reject. We have to reject. We have to reject these concepts. We have to reject these false ideas. And we have to be who we are. We have to be our African self. Stop letting these people come on our platform and spewing this nonsense and treat them lightly. Do not deal with them lightly. Deal with them harshly with scientific information. Reject the nonsense. We need to call it for what it is. It's self-hate. It's delusional thinking. It's a psychosis rooted in our enslavement, and we have developed a negative view of our history, our ancestry, and Africa itself through the demonization of the media, the movies, the school system. All of those things have contributed to this negative image of Africa. And you got some of our people who don't want to be associated with Africa. That those commercials that was run on those cartoon networks from Oxfam and Save the Children and Save the World, and they show these poverty-stricken images of people without water and flies and hungry and pot belly, and so they show all these images, and over time they have poisoned the mind of many of our people. And then you add to that these grandma stories that they hear, these false narrative who, many generations, before us, a lot of them, our previous generation, did not want to be associated with Africa. They also was infected with a resentment of Africa because they had limited information about Africa and limited information about our history. They were cut off from our history. And that is a big problem that we have to face. We have to deal with. We have to constantly combat these false narratives, these false teaching, and prepare our children to deal with these false teaching. It's not necessary. We have a glorious African history that we need to be proud of. Be proud of what we have achieved in the last 400 years, the last 500 years, across the globe where we've been scattered. We've been enslaved as a people and colonized, and we have been spread all over the world, particularly in the Western world. And we have made, we have survived against the odds. Our survival is a testimony to the tenacity, the endurance, and the will of our ancestors. So we have to be proud of that. But we're not going to abandon our ancestors. We're not going to abandon our true history for falsehood, for false narrative. Do not allow these people to come and push this poison on you. It is all fake. It's all false. We are an African people, and we are mixed with many people around the world because, as you know, our DNA have been tampered with, our oral story has been tampered with, our history have been tampered with. Our economic and political development have been tampered with. Imperialism, capitalism have a negative impact on our people. So we cannot, at any stage, forget that we're on a journey of liberation. We're on a struggle of a path of liberation to liberate our minds, to liberate our economy, to liberate our land, and to regain political control of our people and our land, and to determine our destiny as an African family. But we have to be based on science. We have to be based on African culture, and we have to be based on honesty, truth, and accuracy. That is what must guide us. We cannot allow any falsehood to creep in, whether religious falsehood or ideological falsehood from identity falsehood. We cannot allow that. No matter how deep the wound, no matter how deep the pain of our enslavement and our domestic and foreign colonization, no matter how deep that has been, we have to overcome it. But we have to overcome it based on truth, based on accuracy. Be who you are, African. Be who you are. You are a glorious and a great people that have done great things. And we have endured many great atrocities that have been committed against us, and we still survive. We have to continue to survive. And we have to continue to demand the best from ourselves and from our leadership. And do everything we can to resist the colonial domination, especially the neo-colonialism and capitalist imperialist domination of our people. We have to continue to resist and get rid of these falsehood amongst our people. So thank you, my people. Welcome to another episode of Clear Thinking. It's been an honor to serve you, and I will continue to serve you. Do like and share and subscribe to this program, and do look forward for more episode of Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. This has been episode 36. Thank you very much. Ashe, Hotep. What good, my people. Until next time, respect. Hotep.